Massive attacks on Ukrainian cities are targeting residential neighborhoods with hundreds of shahids and various types of missiles flying in. How children born in captivity are growing up in Ukrainian prisons and a heart transplant taking place while explosions are going off all around. We talk about this and more in the TCH Weekly Roundup on Friday, July 11th. I'm Solomia Vitvitska. The 1+1 channel is working as part of the United Marathon. Let's begin. 9 people were injured in Kyiv. At dawn, the city shook from drone explosions. Among the injured are 3 mothers with newborns. Mothers and babies had to be evacuated from the damaged maternity hospital. Residential buildings, a dental clinic, and an educational institution were also hit. In Kherson, the Russians dropped an explosive from a drone onto a cyclist. He was killed. Another city resident was wounded. And in Bilazurka, an outpatient clinic was shelled with artillery. A patient, a nurse, and the clinic's driver suffered blast injuries. Later, rescuers found a woman's body under the rubble. Her identity is still being established. In Donetsk region, the Russians killed 7 people and wounded 3 more. In Pokrovsk, 3 city residents did not survive the enemy shelling. There were also fatalities in Rodinsk, Zapovin, and Zadyshak, as well as in Verlyobka. In the village of Chervenodniprovka in Zaporizhia, a man was injured as a result of a strike by a Russian FPV drone. In Mala Tokmachka, a woman was killed, and overall, the occupiers carried out 600 strikes on frontline settlements. 3 people were wounded in the Dnipropetrovsk region. 2 men were hospitalized in serious condition in the Nikopol district, and another one in the Sinmelnikov district. Drones and artillery destroyed homes, infrastructure, and vehicles. There are already 11 wounded in Odesa. In the morning, the city was heavily attacked by Russians using shahids, targeting residential neighborhoods. Several dozen houses were left without windows and roofs. Auto repair shop premises were destroyed. Private stables were also hit. And our TSN correspondent Serhiy Osadchuk is ready to tell us more live. Hello, Serhiy. First of all, what is the condition of the wounded? And please tell us, how extensive is the destruction in the city? The floor is yours.
Hello, Salomia. Currently, 8 injured people are in city hospitals. Doctors have reported that their condition is of moderate severity. Most of the patients have blast injuries and cuts from glass that shattered and flew everywhere after the explosion. 2 people were released home for outpatient treatment after being hospitalized. One of the victims received assistance at the scene. People say they endured a hellish half-hour of attack.
It's really terrifying. I wish the Russians could feel how happy we are. Every day. And it's a good thing the kids left me yesterday.
She was sitting over there, and I was here. I didn't even have time to get scared, but she was crying and holding an icon. The house jumped several times. And then the last time, it hit so hard.
I was at work, about half a kilometer from here, outside due to air raid. Saw shahids falling, heading toward my house. Ran for phone, saw missed calls from wife, tears, screams. She says, we don't have a home anymore. I get here, and this is what I see.
3 explosions happened one after another. An auto repair shop and private stables were also hit. The fire and blast wave trapped the horses inside. Caring people took down the fence by hand and led the wounded and frightened animals out onto the road. 1 horse died. Since morning, restoration work has been ongoing here in the neighborhood because the streets had to be cleared of fallen trees, metal torn from roofs, and shattered window glass. In the afternoon, the city emergency headquarters began operating on the street where people could submit applications for financial assistance. In total, 63 apartments in 21 buildings were damaged. The affected residents say that the most important thing is that no one was killed and everything destroyed will be restored in time. And the people of Odesa understand that now is the time to stick together. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Serhiy. TSN correspondent Serhiy Osadchuk was just with us live from Odesa. He told us how the city is recovering after yet another enemy attack. The number of people injured in yesterday's Russian strike on the capital has risen to 28. Among the victims are 2 minors. According to the city authorities, people with various injuries sought help throughout the day. The night of July 10th was hellish for the capital. The enemy attacked the city with drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles. Falling debris and fires were recorded in 8 districts, with the most severe damage in Shevchenkivsky and Podilsky. 2 women were killed, a 65-year-old resident of the capital and a 22-year-old corporal, an employee of the Metro Police. Residential buildings, cars, warehouses, office and non-residential structures were on fire. And in one of the most affected areas, the Shevchenkivsky district, TSN correspondent Yulia Kirienko is currently on the scene. Yulia, hello. So, tell us what's happening now at the sites of the strikes, and where exactly are you at the moment?
Hello, Solomia. Right now, I'm near Lukyanivka in the Shevchenkivsky district. Here, probably the most damaged building is a 5-story apartment block that was hit during the latest massive Russian attacks on the night of July 10. You can see just how serious the aftermath of the Shahid drone strike is here. At least, that's what the local residents who were in their apartments at the time heard. Here, an apartment on the 5th floor has been completely destroyed, and the neighboring one on the same floor was also damaged and almost burned out. And as you can see, 3 floors below, apartments have also burned out after the strike, most likely from the Shahid. Many neighboring apartments have also been damaged with broken windows, but at least one entire section of this building's entrance has been completely destroyed. Overall, 2 people were injured here, specifically a man and a woman. They are currently in the hospital. The man is the head of the Union of Artists of Ukraine. He sustained quite serious injuries. He is now in the hospital. Today, we managed to speak with one of the residents of this building. She lives on the 3rd floor. At least, that's where her apartment used to be. She says that after what she went through here on the night of the attack, she no longer wants to live here, especially since there's nowhere to go, because everything has been destroyed. Nothing survived. During the firefighting, which followed the Shahid drone strike, the state emergency service put out the fire with water, and the entire building, from the 5th to the 1st floor, was soaked through. And now listen to what she told us today.
The first impact was on the 5th floor. This is the 3rd floor. From the blast wave, the windows were blown out. A fire started. So you can see everything is covered in soot. Parts of the ceiling have already fallen off. We've already taken down the wallpaper here, removed all the parquet because everything was underwater, everything was floating from the flooding.
Actually, as of today, there's not as much water as there was the first day after the strike. There was ankle-deep water, even on the 1st floor. But still, the walls are wet, and of course people can't stay overnight in these apartments. The ones that are left, though there's almost nothing left of them after the Russian Shahid hit. Today, people came here to take out the construction debris. That's exactly what all their belongings have turned into. And there's still a huge container here, where people keep bringing their destroyed things, their ruined property. I ask you to listen to what Karina also told us about the night of the shelling.
226 on the phone. So there were sounds coming from both sides here. The first impact hit the 5th floor. This is the 3rd floor. From the blast wave, the windows were blown out. A fire broke out. I was in the living room, and maybe that's what saved me, because if I had been lying here on the bed, I would have been completely covered by all the glass that flew out.
Fortunately, after such an attack on the building, only 2 people were actually injured. And that's a good thing, because you can see the extent of the destruction. Small businesses nearby were also affected. That includes a coffee shop and a pet store. But despite all this, even at night and in the morning after the massive attack, they kept working. Now, please listen to what the owner of the pet store has to say. He lives nearby and also went through the Russian Shahid drone raid.
As soon as the Shahids calmed down a bit, we came over to check things out. Well, everything was scattered around here. It was, you know, just a really unpleasant mess. And the building was on fire, but the good thing is, we found out right away that there were no casualties. That's the most important thing. That lifts the mood a little.
At this point, the people who stayed in their apartments, the ones that survived the worst, have already boarded up their windows and covered them with plastic film just to have some way to spend the night. A commission has already inspected the building, and local residents say that they will probably have to dismantle the upper floors because the strike was strong enough that cracks have appeared in the walls. And right now, we can hear another air raid siren going off because Shahids are approaching the capital. So, if possible, stay in shelters. And that's all the information I have for now. Salamiya.
Thank you, Yulia. Take care of yourself and please go to a shelter as well. TSN correspondent Yulia Kirienko was just with us live from the Shevchenkivsky district. This district suffered perhaps the most in the capital during the last massive attack on Kyiv. Enemy assaults are being stopped with mines and drones in the Pokrovsk direction. The mortar crews of the 3rd NGU, Spartan Brigade, are covering the backs of their infantry. The enemy is pushing from Shevchenkov, Yudakny, and Kotlярivka on the southern flank, throwing infantry into assaults, and they constantly need to be eliminated. That's why everyone gets to work, from drone operators to mortar crews. These are still very young guys, under 25 years old, working every day without weekends or breaks. You can help the 3rd NGU Spartan Brigade by joining the fundraiser for Mavics. You'll see the QR code in the report. A report from the Pokrovsk direction by TSN correspondent Ruslin Yermoliak. Next.
The highest number of assaults is happening right here in the Pokrovsk district, where we are now. The occupiers are trying to bypass the city of Myrnarad from the north and from the south to reach the administrative border of Dnipropetrovsk region and cut off the Pavlorad-Pokrovsk highway. To prevent this, our artillerymen and mortar crews are working around the clock to stop the enemy.
Fire!
Enemy infantry is gathering in the tree line before the assault. Targets are set. 120mm mortars are flying at the enemy.
They come in small groups, but we try to catch them on the approaches. There, just like we work, our drone operators with the kids, our air defense, are also working really well.
This guy is 25. The fighter with the call sign Ludiai has been a gunner since the start of the full-scale invasion.
It's simply my choice. I decided from the very beginning that I would go to fight. All my family tried to talk me out of it. They said, "Don't do it. It's war. You're still young. You haven't seen life yet." But I decided that I would go and help the guys.
Life in close proximity to the enemy is a constant risk and stress. The hardest part is getting to the position and getting out of it. The enemy tries to destroy our logistics. Everything flies toward the Garmashev, from heavy shells to drones.
The feeling of fear is always there. When there are shellings, when it lands really close, of course, it gets to your head, it presses on you, and it affects you psychologically too. But then you somehow, cheer yourself up. You think, that's it. Everything will be, fine, all right? Tube artillery, that's tanks. Most often they come out and fire mortars, and there's a lot of drones, FPV, Mavics, that is, they adjust the artillery, and it fires. Lancets, a lot of things, basically, flying stuff.
More than 50 assaults a day happen just on the Pokrovsk direction. The enemy, despite their losses, keeps coming in waves, and it's like this every day. The number of casualties goes into the dozens.
Fire!
In our area of responsibility, the enemy continues to use the same tactic of meat assaults. That is, these are small infantry groups on foot, 2 to 5 people each. In this way, they try to approach and break through to our positions. All of them are destroyed by our UAVs, because the main task is not to let them get close to our infantry. But something new they're using is moving around in light vehicles.
Because of the danger from enemy drones, the mortar crews work underground and live in the confined space of dugouts.
Before, we could just drive up and set up in a field somewhere between the trees, maybe in a little ravine, just so there was no direct line of sight, so they couldn't see us directly. But now, you have to camouflage, you have to, as you can see, dig all the trenches, all the connections to the mortars, to the dugouts, to everything. So there are passageways, so everything is covered and protected.
The crew is made up of guys under 25 years old. All of them are former conscripts. They've already gone through 4 years of war, from Kharkiv to Bakhmut, from Robotyne to Pokrovsk.
Everyone's gotten used to each other. Everyone knows their job. Well, I think in half a year the new guys will get the hang of it quickly. They'll get used to it too. Well, we've just been working together for a long time. Everything's automatic for us now. Nobody gets in anyone's way.
They're still young and say they don't feel tired and are ready to keep fighting the enemy. But the longing for family and children is growing stronger. A year ago in February, my son was born. Even when it's really tough, he pushes away doubts and fears.
No, there's nothing like that. I don't even think about death at all. I know that everything will be fine, that everything will turn out okay, and I especially believe in God, that God is always with me. And, well, I pray, I read prayers every day.
Their combat experience and thoughts are revealed in their sad, pain-filled eyes. These are not the eyes of boys, but of grown men. Grindy came back from leave and just can't get used to what he saw in the rear.
But honestly, nobody really cares anymore, just like they don't care about us. Well, I don't know. I was just recently on leave. They have their own lives, their parties, clubs.
That's why he hurried back from leave to his brothers in arms, with whom he shares wooden bunks and the last piece of bread in the trenches, because here, on the front line, is his family. Ruslan Yaremchuk, Mikhailo Puchata, TSN, 1+1 Marathon, United News, reporting from Donetsk region.
June of this year in Ukraine became the deadliest since April 2022. This conclusion was reached by the UN, which published data on civilian casualties. According to the organization, during Russian attacks in June, 232 civilians were killed and another 1,343 people were injured. These are the highest losses since April 2022. The UN notes that the data is incomplete since the organization does not have access to territories occupied by Russia. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, the UN has recorded 13,500 civilian deaths. However, they assume the real numbers are much higher. Despite Moscow's lies that it does not attack civilian targets, the UN emphasizes that the number of civilian casualties has increased with the intensification of Russian drone and missile attacks. A new SD, the new Trump strategy. The U.S. will now sell weapons directly to NATO and alliance partners, and they will then transfer them to Ukraine. The American president shared these plans with the press. How might this work? And will it finally unblock weapon supplies for the front? Let's discuss this live with my colleague, journalist, and special correspondent for Inter-TV channel Dmytro Anupchenko. He has joined the broadcast from the United States. So, welcome, Dmytro. Is there any clarity on how this new measure will work? The floor is yours. Tell us everything you know about this.
I know a lot, and there is clarity. I'd like to explain that right now, it feels like not only is President Trump's rhetoric changing, but the approaches themselves are changing, and changing fundamentally. In all the recent years of war, we haven't seen a principle like this before. Let me explain to you here that usually, when the United States works with its allies, there have always been two systems, so-called military sales and military aid. Sales means selling weapons, aid means free military assistance. And under Biden, it was specifically free aid that was coming to Ukraine, both weapons and ammunition. There wasn't even a need to use the Lend-Lease mechanism. And now Trump is not just planning. He's already saying that he's going to change absolutely everything. That is, weapons for Ukraine will be sold 100%. Well, it's clear why he's doing this. It's not just about money, it's also an argument for his voters when he can really say, look, under Biden, everything was given to Ukraine for free. Now I'm earning millions or maybe even hundreds of millions for America. However, well, Trump is now openly talking about how this scheme will work. He wants NATO allies to pay for American weapons for Ukraine and moreover, to pay the full price. He explained the scheme, this chain, in quite some detail. He says, we send weapons to NATO, NATO pays 100% for these weapons. The weapons will then be sent to NATO countries, and afterwards the alliance will transfer them to Ukraine. NATO will pay for the weapons. According to the president, these are exactly the agreements that were reached during the last alliance summit. But only now is he talking about this, and he's doing so publicly. But, there are some nuances here too, because when aid was cut, when intelligence sharing was reduced, well, that always led to a wave of criticism and loud scandals. And now, if we move on to procurement, the approval or disapproval of certain items is no longer seen as a failure to fulfill obligations, but rather becomes a commercial matter, taking the Trump team out of the line of fire. But, if this ensures stable supplies for Ukraine, if the delivery of weapons and ammunition no longer depends on the mood of the top official or the political waves that arise in the White House, if these are contracts, well, maybe that's for the best. The main thing is that there's money for it. The main thing is that the Europeans help with the budgets. And one more interesting point, this is more of an announcement. Trump has already announced a very serious speech for Monday, as he put it, a serious speech about Russia. I asked my diplomatic sources about it before going on air. I was curious whether it would be about weapons or about certain restrictions on Russia, so I could bring you fresh news on air. From what I hear, as of now, this is Trump, this is America. With Trump, anything can change, but as of now, the American president is planning to play the sanctions card. I am disappointed in Russia, he said in a recent interview with NBC, and that's why he is once again planning to send a signal to Moscow. But part of Trump's inner circle, and the American press is now openly writing about this, still sees it as a negotiation tactic rather than a classic change of position. Still, I really suggest just waiting until Monday when we'll be able to hear everything firsthand, as they say, and know for sure. So, how exactly are Trump's moods changing? What will he say? And this whole sanctions policy, these threats of sanctions, is it just rhetoric to bargain with Moscow? Or is something finally changing in Washington? Colleagues, back to Kyiv.
Thank you, Dmytro, for the intriguing news. We'll be waiting for Monday. Dmytro Vanopchenko, special correspondent for Inter-TV channel, was with us live from the USA. Trump's special representative will visit Ukraine for an extended stay. Keith Kellogg has announced that he will arrive in Kyiv as early as Monday. He shared this with Navalny Live on the sidelines of the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome. According to Trump's special representative, his visit will last for a week. It should be noted that Keith Kellogg has previously visited Ukraine, not only during negotiations on Donald Trump's peace initiatives, but also in February 2023 together with his daughter, who heads an American charity organization that helps Ukrainians. By the way, Kellogg's daughter commented several times last month on Russia's massive attacks on Ukraine. On social media, Megan Mops addressed her father, saying that it seems the Russians do not want peace. The war continues to steal childhood. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, 2,786 Ukrainian children have been killed or injured, and nearly 70% of Ukrainian kids, according to UNICEF, are experiencing so-called material deprivation. This is an indicator that includes 17 different criteria, primarily covering a child's basic needs, from food and clothing to having a safe place to live and play. Before the war, according to the UNICEF report, only 18% of children experienced such deprivation. But due to regular Russian attacks, the number has worsened dramatically. The enemy targets schools, critical infrastructure, destroys homes, and forces families to leave their hometowns. And this has a profound impact on the younger generation. Therefore, UNICEF emphasizes that investing in the safety, health, education, and development of children should become a key priority for Ukraine and its international partners.